In the world of sales, there are names that shine brighter than others. And today we have the privilege of speaking to the industry leader in sales, Victor Antonio. Thank you so much for coming on the show today, Victor. Now, you aren't just a sales coach, but you're an influencer. Right. You've changed the course of how business professionals sell. I love that your mantra is knowing the why and how people buy.
Yes.
Talk to us about that.
So years ago, I read a book background is I started out as an engineer, eventually moved into sales. And then when I thought about doing sales training, I said, I don't want to talk about how to sell, right? I was kind of not feeling that subject. Then I read a book by Dr. Robert Cialdini called Influence, which is all about behavioral economics and how people buy. And I go, now that's an interesting perspective. What if I don't teach people how to sell, but I teach them how people buy, and if they can align their sales strategy or process with how people buy, people are more likely to say yes and no. And that launched the whole sales influence movement.
So I was at a convention where I saw you speak on stage in front of thousands of business professionals that are in our space. Speakers, coaches, trainers, sales professionals. And I saw you conduct a masterful presentation on the why. And you talked about behavioral economics. Can you expound a little bit more about that?
So the simplest example I give is that, for example, if you have $1 million and I try to sell you a $10 item, your response would be like, sure, I'll try it. It's only $10, right? Yeah, you would respond that way based on how much money you have. But what if you only had $10? And I now propose, hey, buy this. Well, now you're going to look at it different. That's really understanding behavioral economics. People behave differently depending on their situation. So first, we understand their situation and how we frame the conversation. Now, let's say you push back on that $10 because you only have $10. But then if I increase the certainty of you getting your return on investment, you go,
that's a game changer.
That's a game changer. So my job is to, one, have the conversation, understand the buyer, but two, frame the conversation in such a way that I mitigate risk. And that's a beautiful phrase.
Now, you gave an example of 3 different proposals.
Right.
Let's talk about that, because that really is what caused me to lean in at the beginning of the presentation.
When a lot of people put pricing together, right? There's 2 ways to do pricing. One is you can fully load a proposal and say, here it is, all the line items, bottom line pricing. Not a bad strategy, but keep in mind it's very risky because I can look at that proposal and it can be a go or no go, very binary, yes or no. I like using options. And so I teach that if you provide one option, it's a go or no go. Then where do you go? Guy says, no, it's too expensive, I don't want to buy it. If I give you 2 options, let's say one's $500, one's $1,000, again, if I don't know you, and we're just starting business together, $1,000, $500, the brain always looks to mitigate risk. So more likely than not, I'm going to choose the $500 option.
Lower option.
Right, to minimize my risk, minimize my exposure. But if I wanted you to buy the $1,000 one, most people try to pressure people not to buy the $500, buy the $1,000. Feature, benefit, advantage, gain. You should buy the $1,000 one. Behavioral economics says, don't try so hard, don't work so hard. Just put a third option in there that's at $1,500. Now, how does the brain work? Too expensive, too cheap. Maybe I'll just go with the one in the middle. That's cheaper, right? It's like when you go to Wendy's, Starbucks, they always offer you 3 options, and the majority of people choose the one in the middle for that very reason.
So explain a little bit more, and let's talk about how that full proposal would look in this particular scenario.
You will have some people who have to do just one full proposal, right? And so the question is always, do I start low? Like my first proposal to you is, let's say it's a B2B sale.
Okay.
The first proposal is $100,000. I said, I don't know if you can afford it. Let me just start at $100,000 because I think that's a safe bet, right? Let's say your boss is saying, no, offer him the $500,000 one because he'll buy it. He goes, no. Most salespeople go, no, let's just kind of get the foot in the door. Call it the foot in the door strategy, right? Let me just sell him the $100,000. Not a bad strategy. But here's what happens. You leave money on the table. Now, most people like the foot in the door because they like to start low and go high, right? That's how it is. Go get it. Just get a little deal in and then move up, right? I believe that the door in the face strategy is a better strategy. The door in the face strategy is like, whoa, $500,000. No way. Aaron, no way am I paying $500,000. What you say, well, why don't we just take out what you don't want and then we work down. And what'll happen is they won't buy the 500,000, but maybe they'll buy 300,000. That's still better than 100,000.
And so they eliminate, you give them the power
Yes.
to choose on what line items or what options they would like to eliminate.
See, that's a great point. You highlight something that's really a fascinating but very important point. You never take things off the list for them.
You give them the option.
You say, why don't you go ahead, Aaron, and take out what you don't want, and then I'll go ahead and recalculate the price. Why? Because what's going to happen is you're going to have a hard time taking things off. Why again? Because when I gave you the full proposal, you took mental ownership of that full proposal. Now, giving up something is very hard, causes a different type of brain pain. Now, here are the dynamics going on. When I gave you a full proposal, you accepted that, you mentally absorbed it, and now when you take things off, it's hard for you to take things off because you've already just mentally owned it. So you'll only take a few things off. Let's go to the other extreme. You start low, 100,000. Now what happens, it's a different type of brain pain. Now, every time I add something, I'm like, do I really need to buy that? And people will buy less. So when people ask me, Victor, should I start low or high? I said, always start high and then go low.
I saw on one of your YouTube channels, which viewers I would highly recommend that you would subscribe to his YouTube channel. The information is right there on the screen. You need to subscribe. I saw where you gave this exact scenario where you said, suppose that you have two options and you're buying a car. You go to the car dealership, you're buying a car, you have the base model at $35,000,
Right.
or you have the fully loaded with $60,000.
Right.
You really didn't want to spend $60,000, but then again, you're using that same packaged proposal. Okay, you change, you take off which option that you do not want. Correct. And so maybe they'll take off a few options, but they're going to end up spending 45 versus that 35.
Correct.
I love the way that you package that together.
Yeah, so it's either you can sell them the base option or the fully loaded option. Again, low or high. If it's base, it doesn't have a lot of features. If it's fully loaded, it has all the features. And if I approach you with the full featured option, you're going to have a hard time giving up that sunroof, the heated seat, right? So you'll take out fewer things. Now, if I start out with the base model, every time I add a feature, it goes, well, how much is that going to cost? Well, how much is that going to cost? And here's the simplest way of viewing it so you'll never forget it. If you come into the men's store, I sell suits, right? I got shirts, I got ties, I got belts, shoes, I got everything. Would I start by selling you the tie first, or would I sell you the suit first?
You're going to sell the suit first.
Right, because if I sell you the tie, which is, let's say, $50, then I'm going to try to sell you a $1,000 suit. You're like, whoa, yeah, that's a big difference, right? But as soon as I sell you a $1,000 suit, you know what'll go good with that suit? This $50 tie. And now you're saying, $1,000, what's another 50? We've all done that. So always start high, I say, and work your way down.
So we have someone that just texted a question here. They said, how do you overcome that objection whenever you're facing the scenarios of that they don't want to spend more than their bottom line budget?
Right. And it's funny because everybody has a budget until they don't, right? If you think about it, I believe you should respect budget. So if you come in, you say, Victor, my budget's $30,000. But then I also know there's something called the mere exposure effect. The mere exposure effect works like this. I show you something that you didn't consider or had not seen. And I'm not trying to sell it to you. I said, by the way, Aaron, did you know that you can actually incorporate this into the car, for example, and this is what it does, and it can help you with this? And you're going to go, I didn't know that existed. But just the mere exposure to something just makes you think about it. Because in your mind, you'll go, if it was worth it, you'll find that budget. Do you know what I mean? And I think it's not about forcing people to spend more than what they're comfortable with. It's showing them something of value that they go, right, I want that.
One of the things that in our events and in our training programs that we use on personality-based marketing, personality-based strategies, one of the things that we love to encourage our attendees is to identify the behavioral pattern and what it is that the different personality styles truly value. For one particular style, they value results, the bottom line results. What is your take on selling to different personality styles?
I think they should go to your course and take it. That's the first thing I would say. Because I think it's important to understand that I talked about that we want to align our sales process with the buying process. And part of that buying process is in behavioral economics, it's how people think. So if I know that you have a certain personality because I know how to identify based on what you've said, what you've asked me, maybe certain things that you kind of, I guess, hinted towards, I'll go, D, yeah, this is this type of personality. Because I've identified, almost like Sherlock Holmes, because I've identified that, I now know how to adjust my presentation. It's like golfing, right? Depending on where I'm at, I'll change clubs. And I think it's the same way. So I think when you do personality-based, classes and experiences, teaching people this matters, I'm saying, yes, it does. Because our job is to adapt to the personality. Think about flying. You ever get on a plane and it starts hitting a lot of turbulence? What does the pilot says? Okay, we got to find some new air, right?
Let's
Either
adjust.
go lower, let's adjust. That's personality-based selling. If I know you're a D, okay, I need to adjust up here now and sell at this level. If you're an I, let's come over here. You get the idea.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so we've experienced using this model in order to effectively connect to the buyer's behavioral pattern.
Yes.
And we've seen multiple wins to where it's really a win-win relationship where the person that's buying, they don't feel like if they've been sold to, which no one likes to feel like if they've been sold.
Correct.
The buyer looks to see that they want to receive so much value from this.
There's something about, and I'm not trying to promote your program, I just try to promote your philosophy about understanding personalities. Because in understanding personalities, you want the person to walk away feeling like they got the best deal and that you were really trying to help them.
Right.
So for example, if you have somebody who's analytical, just give me the data. Just give me the data. Just give me the numbers, right? If you have a dominating personality, you want to ask a lot of questions, let them win the conversation, guide them to where you want to take them. If you have, let's say, a very amiable person, very social person, then you got to slow down the sales process and adjust to that. And so that's why I think what you teach is important, because bringing those two together, sales technique and personality, and understanding how to blend those in a sales process, that's when you become a very strong salesperson. And by that I mean, a strong salesperson is you use less pressure. That's the irony. When you become stronger at selling, you use less pressure because you just nudge people in a certain direction.
The old philosophy of selling is I have to push them and I have to convince them. I love how you said that, that the irony in sales is, know what? Let them manage the conversation. Let them take control. Give them, arm them with the information that they need that's going to best connect with them.
What's happening now in the market is, so let's address this, because I think there's a lot of stereotypes around selling that are just wrong. So I believe that sales will always be known as pre-internet and post-internet in terms of how people sell. Pre-internet, we, the salesperson, had all the information. You were the customer. Let's take a dealership, for example. You come on the lot. You don't have an internet. I know, hard to imagine. I get that, right? Pre-internet, you didn't have it, right? You go to your classifieds and your newspaper, and that was it. You had this much information. So you came to the dealership because you wanted to increase your information load to the point where you felt comfortable making a buying decision. The salesperson then had the power position, so to speak, because I have the information you wanted. You were willing to spend more time with me on the lot, which is why you spent 2-3 hours with me on the lot. Pre-internet. Fast forward, we have the internet. Now, how do you buy a car? First of all, you go online. You look at your options, you triage all the different options based on some budget that you've decided on, right? By the time you land on that dealership, that lot, you're 60, 70, some people put as high as 90% into the buying cycle. My question is, I always ask this, a trick question, be careful. Do you want a relationship with that salesperson? The answer is no. I'm here for a transaction. I kind of know what I want. Maybe I just need that last 10% of information for you to push me over the line. Maybe some clarification, some confirmation. That's all I want from you. Let me have that. And so all of a sudden we have smarter buyers that are coming to us right now. So why would you try to pressure somebody who's probably done as much research or more research than you have? Our job is to assess how much they know and what's that last mile.
Okay, so let me ask you this, because you asked the question, do you want a relationship with that salesperson? What's your idea about this then? We buy from those that we know, like, and trust.
Old school. And I tell people this, but I'm going to put this in context.
Why do you say that?
Yeah, So in 2011, there was a book called The Challenger Sale that came out.
Okay.
Very disruptive in the market, and not a lot of people understood it. So the Challenger Sale, what it did was, well, here, let me go back even further. Late 1970s, early 80s, there's a book called Spin Selling by Neil Rackham. It was a study, the first study that was sponsored by Xerox at the time, to actually look at how people buy and how to sell more effectively. Fast forward 2011, Challenger Sale comes out. That's the second time it's happened. This time, they looked at 6,400 different calls, 6,400 different calls. And what they did is they looked at 44 different attributes. They identified 44 attributes of the winning salesperson. Here's what's interesting. They came up with 5 personality types. Everybody falls into 5 personality. Let me see if I go off, I'm going off memory here, so if I don't get, there's the hard worker, the problem solver, the challenger, the lone wolf, and the relationship salesperson.
Okay.
5 personalities, right? Now, we all have all 5, but you have one dominant mode. And here's where the book shook the ground, the sales ground, in 2011. Whether the economy was high or low, the winning behavior, dominant mode, was the challenger. A challenger is somebody who will challenge your way of thinking and even nudge you a little bit. Whether it was a simple or complex sale, the challenger won again. Same thing. Shocking part. High economy, low economy, in other words, recession, simple or complex, the profile that did the worst, relationship.
Wow.
So, yeah, and everybody was like, what? It was like heresy, burn them at the stake type of thing, right? It was like, no, that can't be, right? But the data was there. But think about it, it makes sense. Because at that time, when the book came out, they stated buyers were 57% into the buying cycle. Today, again, almost 90% if you believe Sirius and Forrester, the research companies, right? So what's happening is, here's what's changed. I go through the process. I'm ready for a transaction. Think of car. I don't want a relationship. Just tell me.
Bottom line. Give me the bottom line.
But you're a subject matter expert. I have questions. I need one clarification and confirmation. Aaron, I looked up this stuff. Is that true? Confirm this, clarify that. You go, yes, yes, yes. Done deal, buy. I don't want a relationship. I just want you to help me confirm or clarify so I can make the final buying decision. Now, once the sale is done, do I want a relationship with the dealership?
Absolutely.
Yes. That's why customer support, customer service, customer success rose in prominence, because that's where it's at. I am not saying, because people listen to this and go,
So is that the reason, or would you say that that's one of the primary purposes that now we have no haggle pricing when it comes to purchasing cars?
that was like,
That it's a bottom line.
when you look at CarMax, because that's who popularized it, CarMax, because people don't want to negotiate. Everybody's uncomfortable with negotiating. And so that gave rise to that type of strategy, right? Here's your price, bottom line price. So that did give rise. What they were trying to do is by giving you a set price, they were trying to reduce that anxiety you have of going on the lot. That's what they were trying to do.
Sure.
They're trying to serve the new buyer, right? But I want to make sure I want to finish this. It isn't that relationships aren't important. Of course they are. When you get into a complex sale, if we define a complex sale as you have 7 to 10 people who have to make the buying decision. We're spending over, I don't know, $15 million, whatever it may be. Is it important to have relationships with all the different influencers or buying influences in a corporation? Of course it is. So I'm not saying we don't need a relationship. But when it comes to transactional, so if we can look at sales on a spectrum of simple to complex, the more we move towards simple, the less we want a salesperson involved. The more we move towards complex, then we want a salesperson involved. And we'd like to have a nice one, not a jerk, right? So we do want a relationship, but if you ask customers what they want a subject matter expert to help them make the buying decision.
To make that final bottom line decision.
Yes. It's the last mile.
I have some questions that are coming in. Whenever you're making a sale, what are some of the key factors in active listening that a salesperson needs to have? What are some tools? What are some things that they can immediately implement so that way they can become better listeners?
So there's a statement I've always loved. You got to slow down to speed up a sale.
Okay.
Kind of paradoxical if you think about it, but it makes sense. If I view the first part of our conversation, the discovery phase, and I take my time going through that, let me ask you a couple of questions, Aaron. Now, I already studied your company, so I don't have to ask you the basic questions, but I might want to ask clarification questions or confirmation questions. Notice I keep coming back to those two phrases, confirmation and clarification. By the way, you mentioned that your company is looking at the software and you're looking at this. Is that right? It's like clarification. Can I ask why? Like, why now? And so I'm asking all this info and I'm gathering data in this first phase. As I move through the presentation, now that I know what you want, because I did the discovery, I present to your needs. And throughout that presentation, I'm confirming that I listened to you during the discovery, because that's what we want. If you've asked me a lot of questions.
It's affirming.
Yeah, there it is.
It's that affirmation, that active listening. And so what are some of the trouble spots that we get into as sales professionals whenever we negate or whenever we don't put too much emphasis in that, and we're like, okay, let's just get through the proposal. Let me just send you a proposal and let's get you to buy.
Yeah, I think when you're asking about listening, it's always fascinating, because sometimes they did this study where they looked at salespeople who first start with a company. And in many cases, they have more success at closing than veterans, right? Very fascinating. Why? Well, think about it. What happens is that when you first start out, because you don't know, and you're still trying to learn your customer base, you're asking more questions. And you're asking more questions because you don't know, right? So you're trying to clarify as much as possible. Fast forward, you're a year into the gig, and you see the numbers actually decline, the close rates. Why? Because I've talked to enough customers.
You're already comfortable.
Yeah, well, I know what you want.
Yeah.
So what I do is I skip over all those questions that served me well in the past, but now because I skipped over them, you and I don't have that connection. You don't feel like I really understand your business because I skipped all those basic questions. Wow. In other words, we become very impatient, and all of a sudden we start jumping to the end. And then we start stepping on people's conversation because we can actually finish it for them because we've talked to enough customers. I know where you're going, Aaron. And as soon as I say, I know where you're going, Aaron, I just cut you off. I missed an opportunity for us to what? To connect and ask questions. So sometimes when it comes to listening, 1, we don't pause. 2, we step on conversations. 3, we presuppose we know everything. So therefore, let me just tell you, let me just get to the bottom line. And we run to the end. That's why you got to slow down to speed up the sale.
And as a result, what takes place?
No close.
We miss the opportunity.
And by the way, not only the opportunity there, I think there's something called, you know this already, there's the customer lifetime value. I like to emphasize this to people because we don't think about this. We think if I sold you a $100,000 item, right, that's the deal. No, it's not the deal.
Right.
If I know based on my data that the average customer, once they come on board, over the next 5 years, if I use that as a window, will typically buy another $200,000. That deal I just lost wasn't $100,000, that was $300,000. It's a lot of money. So, and by the way, on top of that, if you'd have given me one referral and I'd close that one, on that one referral, that's another $300,000. So the opportunity cost is really $600,000. That's the way to look at numbers.
We've been working in our coaching business, thinking through that lifetime value and what are some of the things that we can offer even to get people in the door because of that long-term relationship that we know that when a certain number of people come to our live events and we're going to be able to serve them most effectively. Some of our studio audience, all of our studio audience is part of our coaching program that have come to our events, and there's a lifetime value as a result of that. Yeah. Talk a little bit more about lifetime value of a sale.
Well, there's
or of a customer.
By the way, there's where we could tie the two together.
Sure.
Let's say somebody comes to your live event, right? You do your presentation, you show the value of what you offer, right? Do I want a relationship at this point? No. I want to know that I can trust you and I have trust in what you're telling me from the stage works, right? Confidence.
Absolutely.
Right? So if you can build my confidence level, then I go, okay, I'll buy. As soon as I buy from you, and now I start attending your courses and everything, do I want a relationship with you? Absolutely. That's where the relationship piece kicks in. So the relationship is always post. And that's how you extend the customer lifetime value. Because if I know in working with you, we have a great relationship, and plus you're giving me the value. Every time we get together, we do something, I see the value. Why wouldn't I want to keep coming back?
Absolutely.
Right? And if I'm growing, which is what everybody wants, that's the difference. In business, we look at, and I want you to think about this when it comes to convincing people, is that by convincing, I mean getting them over that last hump. So when we look at revenue, we define revenue as what? We got rather profitability. The profit margin is what? Revenue minus cost. Keeping it simple, right? Profit margin is revenue minus cost. Well, think about it. What we want when we're talking to an audience, we got to increase their confidence margin. What's the confidence margin? It's certainty minus anxiety. So certainty minus anxiety gives you the confidence margin. So when you're presenting, you want to increase their certainty and reduce their anxiety of buying. And the more you can do that, the bigger the confidence margin is, the more likely they are to make a buying decision.
There's speakers and there's authors and there's coaches that they sell from stage. That's who's watching this show today. Let's talk about how to sell from stage whenever you're speaking at an event.
Right.
And there's a no sell clause in the contract.
Sure.
Selling from stage, it kind of sounds like an oxymoron.
Yeah.
How can you sell if there's a
Sell
no
without
sell?
selling.
And so let's talk about some of the insider, not tips and tricks, but some of the insider secrets that you've used and that have been highly successful to where you can leave an event whenever you're not able to sell.
So I'll give you two techniques I use. One is called the Zargonic effect.
The Zargonic.
Yeah, Zargonic is a very interesting effect. I say something like this. All right, there's 3 ways to make money, Aaron. One way is this way. Okay, the second way is this way. I'll get back to the third in just a bit. And I keep talking. What's your brain saying? Your brain has to close that loop. It's like, give me the third one.
Tell me the third, come on.
Give me the third one. And so in the Zargonic effect, what I typically do is say, look, there's only 4 ways to grow your sales. Like truly, only 4 ways to grow. My Sales Velocity Academy is based on only 4 ways to grow your sales. 1 is that number of prospect in the funnel. How do you do that? 2, increase your close rate. Number 3, increase your average deal size. And there's one thing that you have to reduce, which would be the 4th variable. I'll get into that just a bit. Now, in that little spiel, what did I do? First of all, I introduced the Sales Velocity Academy, which you did not know about until I just mentioned it, right? I tell you, there's only 4 levers for selling, and there really is only 4. If I don't actually finish that last one, what's your brain going to say?
I'm going to go and research it. I'm going to go and find it on your Sales Velocity Academy.
You're going to go to my Sales Velocity Academy. So that's one strategy you can use, and especially if you don't have a lot of time. And by the way, this is not a manipulation trick. Sometimes you don't have enough time.
Sure.
That you only can, and you say to the audience, look, there's 4 levers. I got 20 minutes. I'm going to cover the first 2, and I'm going to go in depth so you can really understand these 2. I don't have time for the other 4. And that's being genuine. I'd rather you approach it that way. So that's a strategy I use. So you just mentioned thing. The second thing, and I'll just do 3 of them. The second thing is that you demonstrate from the stage your expertise. So I'm hoping that during this conversation right now, somebody goes, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. And in my mind, I'm thinking if I can stack the I didn't know that or never thought about it that way, that's building this intrinsic value in the eye of anybody listening or seeing or watching this, right? So that's the other thing is, are you building real value? Too often, if I
building your credibility
that they go
as
hand
the
in hand.
industry expert.
There it is. So you position yourself as a subject matter expert. The more you can push your audience back on their mental heels. By that I mean they go, well, I never thought about it that way. I never looked at it that way. What is your brain saying? Okay, this person apparently knows what they're babbling about. I need to find out more, or at least get or buy their book, whatever it may be. So that would be the second strategy. The last strategy, which I think is the most powerful strategy, and you'll find it where? In my Sales Velocity Academy. But by the way, there is
the information is right there. We want you to get the Sales Velocity Academy.
But I'm gonna do a favor. There's also a free video online in my YouTube channel if you just type in blocking objections.
Okay.
So I've written 14 books. Okay. Now again, what did I just do? I just dropped 14 books, right? Now, which means, well, wait a minute. I didn't know you had books. And now I'm only going to talk about one of them, which is going to leave what about the other 13? What do they have? But let me talk about the one book. And by the way, you can download this free on the website, the book. Okay. It's called Response Block Selling. Now, this is based on like empirical, like real life application. Allow me to tell the story. The payoff is there.
Come on.
Right? Okay. Now, by the way, notice what I did. I just framed that, right? Allow me to payoff is there. That tells the audience right away what? That he's going to tell a story, but he promises me that when he gets to the end, it'll be worth it. Yeah, that's what I'm telling you.
By the way, as you're doing this, also do your expertise of train the trainer and tell them why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah, that's what I just did. I'll keep doing it throughout what I can if I remember. So years ago, a company calls up, true story, company calls up, Salt Lake City, Utah, says, Victor, we saw your videos online. We like the way you train. We have a software product we sell. We'd like you to be one of our trainers. I'm a capitalist. First question I ask is, how much are your trainers making? They tell me how much they're making. I didn't believe it, right? He says, why don't you fly down? We'll show you what we do. And if you like it, you're in. If you're not, that's fine. We'll fly you back our dime. So I flew down there, and I want you to imagine there's 100 people in the room, right? Trainer gets up there, starts trading. 2 products, 3,000 and 6,000, right? By the time he was done, 50% of the people bought. So he closed 50% of the room.
Yeah,
right?
Great.
And then the shocking part, that almost 80% bought the most expensive one.
Wow.
Right? And the only question I had at that time, his name was Jason, I said, Jason, how much did he just make today? And he told me how much he just made, to which I'm like, I'm in, I can do that. If that's the deal, I'll do that, right? So sure enough, they gave me the presentation, they gave me the manual with the script and everything, right? I don't like scripts, but I learned how to use them, right? And then I started doing presentations. My close rates were like lagging. I just wasn't doing well. And so I remember one time, it was in Mississippi or something, I closed like 17% of the room. And that day I made about $5,000 in a day. Okay. At that time, 5,000, I don't know about you, that's a lot of money to me. 5,000 is 5,000. I'm like 17%, 5,000, I'm good with that. So Jason's like, no, minimum close rate is 33%. For like 2 months, I could not get to 33%, just could not. And then he says, Victor, I'm out of ideas for you. And he says, I'm gonna call Clint. Clint's like the guru. Clint comes to see me, we're in California, it's like 300 people in a room, I still remember the day. 300, I did my first, that's a full day pitch, right? I did the first hour and a half, take a break, and I still see Clint coming down the aisle. And he said, Victor, I know what your problem is. To which I'm like he knows, like, what is it, right? And he said, here's your problem, Victor. He said, there's people in the audience, right down, who have reasons why they don't want to buy. Your job is to take those reasons and tie them down. To which I said, how do you do that? He says, just take the reason and tie them down. I go, you didn't add any value to that statement. Because he didn't really explain it. And it was about, this part I'm making up because I don't remember, but it was like a month or so later that I figured out, I was reading some stuff on behavioral economics, and I go, oh, here's the answer. And here's what I came up with, this response block selling. Response block selling works like this, is that there's people who have objections. It could be one-on-one, one-to-many. They have reasons why they don't want to buy. Now, here's the psychology behind it. If you raise the objection, you in the audience raise the objection, you're less likely to change your mind. Rule of consistency. But if I raise the objection from the front of the room, or if I'm doing a presentation one-on-one, if I raise the objection, several things begin to happen. One, the person over there says, yeah, I was thinking that, so I'm glad he brought it up, right? But because I raise the objection, I control how I tie that objection down. If the other person raises the objection, like, Victor, that seems too expensive, now I got to defend my pricing. But I came up with this 4-part structure, and it's in the book. Here's how you block an objection. So I don't believe in overcoming objections. I believe in blocking them.
Okay.
So if you can block objections from the front of the room, you know what the objections are. 1, price. 2, will it work for me? 3, can I do it? Whatever it may be. 3 to 5 typical objections. So let's say it's a price objection. No, in this case, it was software. So let's go with that software looks hard to use, right?
Okay.
So do I wait for somebody to go, Victor, that looks hard to use? No, because then I have to explain it.
You might be thinking.
Yeah. So here's what I do. I said, many people think, looking at the software, because I raised the objection, that this software looks a little complicated. And I understand. I've just raised the objection. Part 2, I offer to resolve it. But let me go ahead and show you a couple of things, and then let you decide if it really is hard. Now, did I ask for permission? They typically go, what? Yeah, go ahead, show us. Do you mind if I show you something? They go right ahead. Third phase is that you demo something. Click, drag, drop, cut, paste, right? And then here's the tie down. Notice what I'm going to tie down. Not the sale, I'm going to tie down the objection. What's the objection? Looks complicated. But I just showed you. Point, click, drag, drop, cut, paste. And I say something like this. Based on what I've just shown you, do you think with a little practice in our support, you could do that?
Wow.
And they go, yeah, objection closed. So now imagine if we can go from this side to this side, that this is the time 0 of the presentation, 45 minutes, let's say it's a 45-minute presentation. I know what the objections are. And if I sequence, I plan out how to block each objection throughout, what you begin to see is the reducing of the actual resistance. So then my close rates went past 17, went past 33, and I think on average 45 to 50 was easy, my close rate.
Will you please demonstrate those 3 to 5 overcoming of the objections? You just did the product. That was one. Let's go through the price objection.
So the price objection is, by the way, perfect setup. So the price objection is now, many of you think that this right here is too expensive. And I understand. And again, you can play with the wording. And by the way, in the book that you can download for free, I have 22 different scripts of the 22 different types of objections you typically get. So I cover the whole gamut.
Okay.
So on the pricing, many of my clients tell me this price is too expensive, this product is too expensive, but that really depends on what you're buying. Offer to resolve. Do you mind if I show you a couple of things? And they go, what? Yeah, show me a couple of things, right? I can do this. Let me go slow. Many of my clients tell me that this is really expensive, right? And I put the price, let's say $1,500. I'm just saying it's a $1,500 software. $1,500 is too expensive. I said, but before you think it's too expensive, because I understand, do you mind if I show you a couple of things it can do? And then you can tell me if you think it's too expensive. And then I demo, right? The third part is the demo. Now here's where I tie it down. What did I tell them? It was what? $1,500, right? So then I do something like this. I say, in my tie down, I said, now we offer 3 options. There's a $1,500 option, there's a $700 option, then there's a $500 option. Which one works best for you? Now notice what I did. I anchored them at $1,500, whatever the price is, and then at the end, I gave them options. And so that's how I use one price strategy.
And then you go back to if they want that 5 or they want the 15, but that's too expensive. Okay, $750.
I don't even work for it. I
15.
said, by the way, listen to the phrasing. Which one of these works best for you?
Okay.
No, I have to hassle. I believe, look, Bruce Lee had this, remember Bruce Lee? That guy?
Sure.
So Bruce Lee had this saying, and let's see if I got it right. I'm not afraid of a man who practices, 10,000 kicks one time. I'm afraid of the person who practices one kick 10,000 times.
Okay.
So I don't believe you need 10,000 closes. You just need one. And you practice delivery of that close. Here's mine. Is there any reason we shouldn't get started? That's it. I'm sorry. I know you wanted some magic on that one, but that's it. That is the ultimate close I use. No matter what I talk about, is there any reason we shouldn't get started? I'm forcing you to come up with reasons. Now, I've blocked all your objections. Now, the great thing about blocking objections, if you agree that there were...
I love your terminology, by the way. I blocked all your objections.
Yeah. At least
Do you mind if I use that?
all yours. And by the way, if you sit down, let's say that we're part of the same company, right? We sell assessments, right? Personality assessments. I'm part of your team.
Okay.
We can sit down as a team and just say, okay, so what is every objection we typically get? Let's list them all out. And again, the most you'll find, without duplicating, is 7. That's the most I've found. Legitimate objections. So if we sat down, 7 objections. Now, we as a team worked, and what you'll love about the book is that creates structure. I have a framework that you can use to write all. Remember, raise the objection, offer to resolve, demo, tie it down. We write out the scripts for all 7 objections.
Wow.
Everybody on the team gets it and understands it, and everybody knows how to say it. Here's where a lot of salespeople lose deals. When you don't know what to say, you hesitate. Somebody says, well, that's expensive. Let's say that objection just popped up before you could block it. What do most people go? Oh, yeah, I mean, really, you hear all that? That's it, you lost them. You ever ask somebody a question and they hesitate for a microsecond? Yeah, or they do that, they look around, you go, he doesn't know. If they hesitate, yeah, they go, yeah, we could do that. And you hear that, that's it. Imagine if you know how to respond to every objection and it comes out like that, smooth as butter. That's what a lot of salespeople lack today. I'll test you. I don't expect you to pass them. I'll be surprised. I say to you, let me think about it. What do you say? You're selling me your assessment. Let me think about it. Boom, you hesitate already. You've already lost, but go ahead.
I've lost it.
Yeah, I know, but go ahead. Give me your best shot at this one. It's a tough one. Okay, let's reverse it. I'm selling you my sales training program, right? Gone through my pitch. Is there any reason we shouldn't get started?
Let me think about it.
I said, now, Aaron, there's only 1 of 2 reasons you need to think about it. One is you really don't want the product, or you do want the product, but you're just not sure. Which one is it?
It's probably that I am not sure at this present time.
Now,
I don't know if this is the right time for me to step into it.
Love it. Well, the fact that you're interested, you're just not sure, that's fine. Most people are not sure for 1 of 3 reasons. The first one is you don't see this academy as a fit for what you want. Is that it?
That's probably, I'm trying to still gauge and determine if this is the right fit.
Okay. Is there something that's not fitting? Okay. So maybe there's a feature that we don't offer that you're looking for. Is that it?
I think I need a little bit more clarity.
Okay.
On
Remember,
the features.
I've given you all the features already.
Okay.
So is there something missing? Is there a course in this academy, because I can do that, is there a course in this academy that we don't offer
Okay.
that you may be thinking we want?
No, I believe that it hits really the foundational components.
So it has all the courses. So
Sure.
you see it as a fit, something you can use. It has all the features and the courses you want. And I have to believe at this point it's a financial question. Is that it?
That's probably what it is.
And so what I've done, and by the way, and if you say, no, Victor, it's not the money. So wait a minute. It is a fit. Let's go with the extreme here. It has all the features you want, and it's not the money. Notice I use F's, so you can remember this. And I'll walk through the whole structure and what just happened. But there's fit, feature, finance.
Okay.
And if all three are goes, like, no, that's not a problem. It is a fit, has the features. It's not the finance. I got the money. Then the fourth F is fear. And that is, I did not mitigate the risk. I didn't create that confidence margin somewhere in my presentation. Now let's go back and do this, because this is a big one. The I'll think about it is the biggest
And see,
killer.
and the fear is whenever you're saying personality assessments, one of the reasons why a lot of times that people do not buy into our events, our programs initially is more of that fear. I have invested in other training programs or other events, and I did not get what I anticipated to receive.
So again, blocking the objection. Now, many of you have probably invested in other programs and it didn't really give you what you wanted. Is that fair to say?
Yes, sir.
Right, so let me go ahead and show you a couple of things of why this is different. Do you mind if I show you?
Absolutely.
I just offered to resolve. Now I just got to go demo, show you a couple of things, and then I tie down. Based on what I've shown you, can you now see how this is different from other programs?
Wow.
That's the tie down.
Wow.
But let me go back to the I'll think about it, because that's where a lot of people get stuck.
Okay.
I don't have a problem. I have it in my head already. When someone says, let me think about it, I funnel them to make one of two decisions. Like most people go, what do you need to think about? Can I help you think about it? No, nobody wants that. But if I say, when someone tells me they have to think about it, it's usually because they're not interested, or you're interested, but not sure. Which one is it? Now, I should tell you when
I'm
I do
not
this.
interested.
Now, when someone tells you they're not interested, you stop selling.
Okay.
That's it, you stop selling. But you try to do one thing I do, which is I'll say to you, Aaron, I get it. I'm not going to try to sell you the program. I said, but let me ask you a question. Maybe you can help me. He says, is it just because this doesn't fit your program and you keep insisting, I'm not selling. I'm done. I'm literally done selling. But what I want to do is understand why you're not interested. And I may come away with, you're just not a client fit because you're doing something differently. That just gives me information for the next time I talk to a client to say, okay, I need to incorporate this, or I need to ask this question during discovery to make sure that you're the ideal client profile for me.
Sure.
Because maybe I'm just talking to the wrong person.
Sure.
So it has nothing to do with my presentation. It's just that you're just not a fit. And in terms of a profile.
Yeah.
So I stop selling as soon as they say, I'm not interested. Can you help me why? To understand why. And then they'll give you that information. And then you take that knowledge of information and you use it for the next presentation. But again, not interested, or interested but not sure. 9 out of 10 says, no, I'm interested, I'm just not sure. Now notice I funnel you again. They're not interested for one of three reasons. Notice I said that. The first one is you don't see this as a fit. No, it's a fit, Victor. I can see how we can use that. Maybe there's a feature missing, something that you want that we're not offering, a class. No, it has all the classes I want. Then I repeat, if it is a fit and has all the features, then it has to be what? Finance. And if you say, yeah, that's it. I said, well, let's work out something that's mutually agreeable for both. And now we're moving forward. There's some momentum there. Because here's what happens. This is the important piece that most people don't really think about. It's harder to get face-to-face with somebody, or even, Zoom to Zoom, video calls together, right? So I've sent you 10 emails, Aaron. I've talked to you twice on the phone. I'm just exaggerating. I sent you 5 texts. I've invested all this time trying to get in front of you. The last thing I want to hear from you is let me think about it, because then you'll ghost me or I'll never hear from you again. And when I talk to companies, I said, how many times when somebody says, I'll think about it, I'll get back to you, do they get back to you? What do you think that number is? Almost none.
It doesn't happen.
So I want to walk away from that meeting. I need to know, because I've invested all this time and effort to get this face-to-face space with you.
Absolutely.
Why would I want to walk out of there not knowing?
So let me ask you this. In that particular scenario, of its finances, it's the funding, and you're offering the $1,500 program, then do you go back to that same model, that same strategy? Okay, here's the features and benefits for $1,500. Which one do you not see to be a fit, or which one do you want to take out?
Yeah, so perfect. Great question. So you get to the finance piece. So if we give them the fully loaded presentation, assuming we didn't do options, fully loaded.
Do you typically do the fully loaded?
I do whatever works.
Okay.
That's the simplest answer, right?
Okay.
So I like doing options, as I mentioned earlier. I'm an options guy.
Sure.
Right? I like giving options. But if I do a fully loaded, I'll give you both examples. If I do a fully loaded, I say, well, here's what we can do. Why don't we take out this, this, and this, and this, bring the price here. Does that work for you? Because they've already said they want to do it. So we've already closed the deal. Mm-hmm. It's just a matter of agreeing on a price. Sure. Let me pull something out and do this, and let's just start here. If I'm doing options, I say, well, let's not go for the 1,500. Let's just do the one in the middle, start there. And they go, and if they get wobbly, just go, okay, I can still, if you're not sure, let's just go with the one in the bottom. I don't mind starting at the bottom and then working back up, but I'm always going to shoot for the one in the middle.
Yeah.
And then figure out, and by the way, we can do the 1,500. What if I give you financing options? Instead of net 30, I'll give you net 90. And within that net 90, we can break it up. Instead of 2 prices, we can break it up into 4 payments. How does that work for you? 2 or 4 would be better.
4 sounds better.
Let's do that one. And you get the idea. But notice I've gotten past the I'll think about it, because the I'll think about it stops the conversation right there. But when you say, no, not interested, interested but not sure, because I need to know, right? And they go, no, I'm interested but not sure. That to me is a positive, because they're interested, they're just not sure. So now I moved through that funnel. But notice what I did is it's almost like a hurdle, the I'll think about it hurdle, I got over it, and now we're still talking. Because as soon as you say, let me think about it, and I go, okay, should I set up another time to talk to you? That's not going to happen. And then if you go back to your office, what are you going to tell your manager? Great presentations. Loved me. Killed it. Nailed it. And then what happens? A week or 2 goes by. Nothing.
Where's the money?
Where's the deal? And then you got to explain to your manager why. So I believe you should walk out of there knowing. By the way, what's interesting about this is that if you said, let me think about it, and I ask you, is not interested or interested but not sure, I would actually listen to your tone and how you responded to me. Because we don't often think about this, but I like to listen to voice. So let me step back, because this is an important point. When you memorize everything you have to say, every 7 objections, I got it down. I got it wired up here. I don't have to think about it. You can wake me out of a dead sleep, so let me think about it, and I'll give you the answer, right? Because I don't have to think about the objections and what I have to say, I don't use processing power, cognitive processing power. I don't have to use it. Because I know my presentation, the sequence, I don't have to use processing power. Because I know what the hit points are, in other words, what the key phrases are, I don't have to use processing power. So what happens is that extra processing power allows me to be not in the conversation, but on the conversation. It's like Michael Gerber's E-myths. Never work in your business, work on your business, because it's a system. When I'm on the conversation, not in it means I'm thinking about everything I have to say. When I'm on the conversation, I already know, because it's subconsciously programmed. What I can then do with that extra processing power is really pay attention to your body language, your micro expressions, right? The tone of how you respond to me. And if I hear something like, oh, yeah, that might be a good idea. Once I hear that might.
And that's where personality-based strategies really has its strong effect, where we teach our students how to effectively read, identify. One of the things we say is how to quickly identify the behavioral pattern, and then adapt and know the exact words to use in order to establish that connection.
And by the way, the word you use that's key there is pattern, because sales is about pattern recognition.
Right.
Just like personality tests, it's really about recognize the patterns, understand the patterns, adjust to the patterns.
Well, Victor, a question just came in, and someone's asking, and I'm going to read it right here. In this day and age of Zoom, of phone, of the internet, how do I get a face-to-face meeting with someone that I've been prospecting for a long time?
So one of the things, by the way, the data shows it. It's harder to get a face-to-face meeting. By the way, I understand the benefit of face-to-face. When you ask salespeople, what's your closing rate when you get a face-to-face? I mean, close rates on average are about 40%. Cross industries, cross-sectional study of industries, on average, people close 4 out of 10 deals. When you do face-to-face, that number is more like 80%. Yeah. So everybody wants the face-to-face. Everyone wants a face-to-face meeting. Got that. But here's what we're not understanding. I go back to finding the why and how people buy.
I love it.
It's not what we want. It's how they buy. And I think we have, look, in any given audience, I always say you have about 4 or 5 different generations, right? So typically you'll have baby boomers all the way to Gen Z, right?
Sure.
If you ask them, if you ask baby boomers, want face-to-face, what do you think they're going to say?
Absolutely.
Yes, Victor, because I close deals when it's face-to-face. I can love them, squeeze them, hug them, that whole thing, right? You go to Gen Z and you go, you want face-to-face? What do they say?
Not necessary.
Text me.
Yeah.
How many times have you called your child, doesn't answer the phone, and then they text you like 5 seconds later? You're like, I just called you, right? But they're like, text me. And the thing is, people buy differently. If I go from, let's say, baby boomer to Gen Z, you'll see that baby boomers want face-to-face, Gen Zs don't. If you talk to industry leaders, they'll tell you, they don't want to meet with salespeople. Why? Because the majority of salespeople offer no additional value than what they already know. So salespeople aren't being trained well enough. That's a big problem in the industry. So there's an interesting situation here. And it's easy to say, okay, if I had the face-to-face meeting, I can close. But the reality is you're not getting it. So the question then becomes, don't make a statement, I'm just not getting the meetings. Ask yourself, what can I do in lieu of not getting a face-to-face meeting that will pull people into a conversation? So let's say, I don't know, you have an item that you brought back from the Holy Land, right? And the only way to really understand this product, you believe is to touch it, hold it, feel it, and all that stuff, right? You want to just, oh my God, look at this. See, again, that's one way of looking at it. But studies have shown that I can have the same effect if I just do the presentation right. Here's what I would do. If I'm selling this item right here, right? And I can just send them a picture. Well, first of all, I wouldn't send them a picture. First of all, I would actually have the picture, this little item right here. I would describe, I would do a video. My favorite tool, you use like BombBomb.
Sure.
There's all these different video tools that you can use, right? And so you can use these different video tools to say, hey, Mr. Customer, by the way, this is the product I wanted to show you. Now, let me go ahead and show you this because this is really special. Now, this right here is not just made out of any crystal, it's made out of crystal. Now, 19 and I give it some historical value, right? Then, this stand right here, not just any stand, if you turn it right here, you'll see this. Now, the reason this is important, this structure, the way it's set up, is because of this. And I describe it in such a way that person goes, now I've given a story. Studies have shown that if I can give this item a story, a background, it sells more.
That's good.
It sells more. So why not tell a story with video? The thing is, it's not so much what we want and how we want to sell, it's trying to understand what they want. What are they trying to do? The buyer is trying to mitigate their risk. What's the risk? Setting up a meeting, waiting for you to get to my office, hoping I can get you out of here in 30 minutes because I've got other things to do. So that's a lot of time I got to give up. So again, that's what they're thinking. So how do we mitigate their risk? If I describe this, take the time, cool box, I can show the whole thing. I said, now to really appreciate this requires a meeting. I said, so now we got 2 options. I put the options below. We can do next Tuesday, got the calendar link, or I can do next Wednesday, let me know. Now there's a call to action. I've given you 2 dates. If my presentation was good enough, and by the way, again, I will admit, face-to-face is always better. I'm not going to disagree with it, but it's not what I want, it's what they're willing to give me. So because they're not willing to give me the face-to-face, I go, okay, now I got to figure this out like a Rubik's Cube. What do I do differently? And so then I would do something like that. Now, with BombBomb and some of these other things, you can actually track if they actually open the link.
Sure.
Right? And you can actually track if they shared it with somebody else.
Yep.
That tells you a lot about how well your presentation went. So there's several ways to get around it. I'm just saying that we got to adjust to how they want to buy. And if they want just you to demo it, to see it, because we've all done that. You're on a call, you say, well, show me what it looks like before I decide to drive over there. Just kind of give me an idea of what it looks like. I go, yeah, you're right. So this is called reducing customer friction. That's the big phrase today, is how do you reduce the friction for them to make a buying decision? And by me giving you a video instead of setting up a time for me to wait for you, get there, have the presentation, so forth and so on. I watch the video, I go, you know what? Let's do this. That's how I would do it. Whatever technology I have to use, I would adjust to them. Remember, never blame the buyer, never blame the audience. If they don't get it, it's because you didn't frame it in such a way that they should get it.
So that's an excellent point. I love that because again, you're using the personality, and not only the personality style, but you're being mindful of that, but then also the generational time and when they're born, Gen Z,
Yep.
or baby boomers all the way to Gen Z, and how we buy in different times depending on that. But I love how you're framing this, and you're still conforming according to the way that they buy versus this is what I have been known to do, or this has been my strong point.
You remember there was a book 30 years ago, 30 plus now, it's probably The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Sure.
So in there was, I remember the donut, the circle of influence and the circle of concern, right? The outside circle with things you can't control, right? You can't control the economy, you can't control regulations, you can't control what the company does, so forth and so on. In the center donut, the center circle were things you can control. So I always focus on my center of control. What can I control? I can't control the fact that they don't want me to see them, that I can't get the appointments, that they just buy digitally. I can't control that. That's how they buy. So what can I control? Oh, I can control how I present my product or how I can approach them. So it can be simple video. By the way, I would do the product video, and then maybe I'll go to a client premise and record another video over there. So by the way, here's how it works at the customer premise. I thought I'd show you this video. And I come over and say about it, and you would tell, now I got a video testimonial. Now, by the way, I can do this product presentation one time and just don't use any names, right? And then I can use that video over and over again. And I can just add a little tag on top of it.
Absolutely.
So there's so many ways you can do it.
Prior to that question coming in, we were discussing the 4 ways that people buy or how to overcome their objections.
Right.
Can we reconvene and get back to that?
Yeah, so there's only 4 ways to increase your sales, right? One is to increase the number of leads you get, prospects. Number 2, average deal size. 3, conversion rate. And the last one is sales cycle, how long it takes you to sell something. So I calculate something called the Sales Velocity Academy using that. If I can increase the number of prospects, increase my close rate, increase the average deal size, divided by, and I can reduce the amount of time that it takes to close a deal, my sales velocity goes up. So that's why I say there's only 4 ways to grow your sales. And if I can increase, like for example, the numerator, prospects, close rate, average deal size by 10%, and I can reduce the denominator, which is the sales cycle, how long it takes to close a deal, by 10%, my overall velocity increases by 54%.
I would love to hear, because this is what's going through my mind. Okay, the sales cycle.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have a longer sales cycle, and that's probably my biggest stumbling block, the area that I would need the most help in.
Right.
Can we talk about that?
Yes. So let's look at a set. So here's how, again, engineering by trade, to me, everything is process, right? And so if I look at my sales cycle, one way to reduce your sales cycle is by pre-qualifying early.
Okay.
So this is what we're afraid to do. Like I remember my wife was like, hey, we need to redo our kitchen, our bathroom. And so we called this place up, true story, called this place up. And the lady said hello. I said, here's what we're looking to do. And she says, well, I just want you to know that the minimum contract size we work with is $5,000. Now, I remember when I first heard that, I was somewhat offended. I'm like, oh, I can afford $5,000. But I realized what she was saying. She was pre-qualifying me like, I'm just letting you know, it's above $5,000. And I thought that was brilliant. I mean, later on, I thought it was brilliant. I go, you know what? That is kind of brilliant, because you're basically saying if you don't even have $5,000, it's not worth the conversation. So by qualifying hard at the beginning, you reduce that sales cycle, because what happens is the further you get into the sales process, the more time you invest in them, your costs go up. So almost look at this that, okay, I called you. Well, anyway, I sent you 10 emails, 5 texts, 3 videos. That took some time. There's a cost associated with that. We got together for the first time via Zoom for an hour. That's costing me money, right? Then you said, okay, let me set up a second meeting because I want to bring in other decision makers. So we set up that meeting as well. And then finally you said, you know what? We want you to come and do a presentation to our team. That's the third meeting, right? You get the idea? Now, the further I go into that process, the more I'm investing, the more it's costing me, right? So I'm trying to qualify this early on, because the earlier I can qualify, the less cost is associated with that process.
Sure.
So the first thing to do is find ways to qualify the deal. And too often we don't qualify the deal because we're afraid to lose the deal. Well, sometimes it's better to lose the deal than invest all this time, and then they get to the end and they say, what? Let me think about it. Or they say, no, it's not for us. It's not a fit. Well, that means you've invested all this money, all this time. And remember, if I've invested, let's say 2 weeks, a month, let's say a month, and you say no, and I should have qualified you earlier, because I kind of knew you weren't going to buy, right? How much time did I lose? The answer is 2 months, because I wasted a month on you, but I also missed out on the opportunity to go after other people who would have bought, who were more qualified. It's called an opportunity cost.
Sure.
So it's not just a cost, there's an opportunity cost associated with it. So to reduce your sales cycle, one, qualify early, qualify frequently through the process. So because you can do the first presentation says, based on what I've shown you, is this still lining up with what you want? Let me think about it. Well, when people tell me I have to think about it, at this point, they're not interested, or they're interested, not sure. Which one is it? That whole thing, right? So I'm qualifying frequently. So qualify early, qualify throughout the process to boot them out as soon as you can, so to speak, right? So the second thing, I guess you can do, the third thing really, so want to qualify early, frequently. The third thing is use technology. It's amazing how some things like, I still have people who send me documents they want me to sign, and they just send me a PDF file. And I'm like, why don't I just get something like DocuSign?
Right.
And you can sign it right there, and I know what real simple. Piece of technology I can insert, right? Or sometimes I say, if I were to block diagram my process of closing, the actual sales process, is there anything I can combine? Can I do these two things? In other words, it's not just a presentation, I do presentation and demo together. So I combine those two processes, right? Maybe I don't need to do this anymore, so I can delete or eliminate that step in the process. Or again, I can use technology. So I try to find ways to look at, I block diagram everything out. I literally do, like put blocks and just try to figure out, if I look at all these blocks, how can I accelerate my way through these sequences to close?
So you put a key word in there that I want to steer a different direction is about technology.
Yes.
I know that you have a technology background in engineering, and you've been one of the forerunners in AI.
Correct.
So how are you using AI currently in your sales processes?
So to frame AI, everybody talks about AI. They don't, and I think most people don't really know what they're talking about.
That's a very general.
The best definition was, I think it was, his last name is Kelly. He was the founder of Wired Magazine, had the best phrase for understanding AI. AI, he says, is a utility.
Okay.
He says the best way to understand AI is to think of electricity, which I thought was fascinating. Everything, lights, the cameras, everything, the screen you're watching us through is powered by what?
Electricity.
Right. He says AI, he says that's called electrification, right? When you electrify everything, electrification. Sure. He says AI is cognification. It's a utility. Ooh. Everything will be cognified, he said. For example, your watch has some AI. Why? Because it's collecting data, right? Internet of Things is collecting data. Your computer, again, has some AI in it already. Maybe not on the computer, but I'll tell you this, when you push it to the cloud. If you use Alexa, AI, right? So AI is almost everywhere. The thing is, we're going to be cognifying more and more things, right? How do you use it in the sales process? What we're finding in the market today, and the data bears this out, is that we're spending, here's the interesting thing, we're spending a lot of money on sales enablement tools, right? We're giving salespeople more tools to sell.
Okay.
We're doing this, sales enablement, right? Enable them to sell. Mm-hmm. Here's the fascinating thing. Rewind the clock, 2018, salespeople were spending about 35% of their time selling. The other 65% was just administrative and other things, right? Only 35% of their time was actually spent selling. So, 2018. So what do? Gave them tools. Guess what? The number went down. Now they're only spending 28% of their time selling.
Wow.
More tools didn't help. They also looked at 2018 that on average the close rate was 57% across different industries, different size companies. 57%. That was the close rate. Now it's down to 45. Wait a minute. I just gave you more tools.
Yeah.
I just gave you more tools and the close rate's going down and my activity level is going down as well.
And your cost is going up.
And your costs are going up, exactly. So what's happening in the market? First of all, the buyer's changing. We're spending money on the wrong side of the equation. We're spending it on giving sellers more tools when we should be spending it on the buyer enablement side, how people come to your website. So when you talk about how to use AI, chatbots, because of ChatGPT and what's happened, for anybody who understands what's happened, this is a true transformation in AI. ChatGPT is, again, people look at that, that's cute, it does all these wonderful things. No, you don't understand. It's a real game changer now. So what you're going to start seeing is more bots. Goldman Sachs had a stat that just came out like a month ago. It says, on average, they're predicting within the next 5 years, I believe the time cycle is correct, that there will be over 300 million jobs lost, 18% globally, because of what AI is about to do to us. It is a true disruption that I think people don't really understand. Everybody thinks, oh, you'll just be displaced, because remember, that's usually how it is.
Sure.
Once we come with technology, then you can go over here and do this. For example, when certain technologies came over, I fired you here, but I then took you over here and you can work on a manufacturing job, in other words, you weren't replaced, you were just displaced. Mm-hmm. There's no place to be displaced now for what's coming. And a lot of white collar jobs, salespeople are going to be like AI'd out. And again, I show data, I show even proof. If you've never seen the Google Duplex demo, where the AI actually makes an appointment at a restaurant and then a salon seamlessly. A company called Air.ai just came out with a chat bot that actually you can hear the sales bot actually engaging with a person over the phone, asking open-ended questions and pushing them forward with like 7 or 8 different questions. Seamlessly. The other person doesn't even know it's talking to a bot, and it's a bot. That's how advanced. This has been in 2017 when this new paper that really gave birth to ChatGPT came out. It changed how the algorithms were developed. And what you're seeing, ChatGPT is the manifestation of what happened in 2017 when that Google Brain people came out with this new paper that says, here's how you do it. Here is the power of natural language processing. And I don't want to get too nerdy, but all this is to say is, this is the real deal. This is going to displace a lot of jobs. These bots are going to be to the point where you can't even, you won't even know you're talking to a bot. I know people listen to this and go, that's not possible. Oh, it's possible. I got examples. I mean, can they empathize with you? Yeah, it's possible. It's already possible today, okay? So it's. I know, you're looking at me like, okay, that's a little scary, Victor. You just went dystopian on me. But the fact is that it's not that it's all negative. There's a lot of upsides, by the way.
Yeah.
Right? For example, ChatGPT passed what is the bar exam and the medical exam. This is what people don't get. It passed exams. It's actually finding things, for example, in x-rays that even doctors have missed.
Wow. Yeah.
Because of what's happening. So the disruption is real. What's happening right now, I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but what you're seeing is an AI arms race right now. Everybody's trying to figure out, how do we do it? You know how you look at Google?
Sure.
Your search engine? Dead. Those will be gone in a few years. In other words, you will no longer go to Google and then get all the listings. So search engine results pages are going to be gone. Why? Everybody is going to have a digital twin, which means it's your Alexa. Mm-hmm. You're going to say, you're going to have Aaron AI, right? Little Aaron. And you go, yo, little Aaron, I want to plan this. I need a haircut, schedule that for me, and make sure you hit those. And it's all tied to your calendar, and it will do it for you. And people watching this or listening to this go, that's not real, that's not going to happen. It's happening. It is happening. You just haven't seen it. It's almost like when a tsunami happens, that happens offshore. Somewhere offshore, there's a tsunami. The wave finally hits like 2-3 hours later. The wave is hit, called ChatGPT, and all generative AI type of products. What's happening now is that technology, that wave is moving inland right now. And over the next 3 to 5 years, you'll look back at this conversation and says, I guess he wasn't too wrong.
So you are giving hope. So give some hope to our viewers.
Okay.
What are the top 3 things that you as a sales professional and our viewers that are coaches, speakers, trainers, sales professionals, what are the top 3 areas that immediately we need to tool up on?
Tool up. I'll give you the CEO of Stability AI said something interesting, Imad Motask. He said something interesting. AI won't replace you. He says, people who use AI will replace you. So if you're not, who don't use AI, in other words, if you don't learn how to use the tools, you're going to be AI'd out. So in other words, there's going to be jobs where AI will do it by itself. But those people who understand how to use and leverage AI in all its forms will be the winners.
So tool up number 1 is? The
tool up is understand what it is we're dealing with. And certain things you're not going to be able to kind of get around. You have to create more value. So for example, this will blow your mind, because it blew my mind when I saw it. The guy draws on a napkin the home page of a website. Just draws on a napkin, just draws it out, put tab buttons here, writes the letter home, about, whatever, this tab, that tab, puts a little box here, picture, scans it, and tells the AI to generate the homepage, right? Now, he still has to go in there and drop the what? The pictures and the content, but it already did the framework.
Yeah.
So if you're developing websites, you're gone.
Yeah.
That's it. Your website, that's gone. I mean, it's gone. So that if you're a web developer, you better come up with another way of making money or adding value to what you do. And if you make your living as a copywriter, writing copy, well, that's an easy one. You're done, right? There's so many tools out there now. Just stop me if I'm boring you, but I just find it fascinating.
Yeah.
There's a company called Andrew Ng is the founder of a company called Coursera. I think he sold Coursera, right? He has a website, a company called landing.ai, if you want to look it up. This is the most amazing tool. It's a visual recognition tool. So for example, let's say that this is the product I shipped you, right? Right? And it arrived broken. The crystal ball was cracked, right? Here's what's going to happen. Andrew Ng came up with a way of, I'll take the crystal ball and I'll crack it several ways. Just drop it, crack it several ways. And I'll take pictures of it, right? Stand, I'll break the stand, take pictures of it, how it could possibly break. All the different ways this thing can break, right? Now, within 5 minutes, this is the part most people don't understand. Within 5 minutes, I could train an AI machine, 5 minutes, by just uploading all these pictures I just took. I can train an AI to detect broken product, okay? Now imagine the following scenario. I ship it to you. It's broken. You're a little upset. Traditional is you got to call me, customer service. I route you a couple of places, Oh, can you show it to us? I'll have somebody look at it, so forth and so on, right? Okay, generate this. In other words, I got to get 4 or 5 people involved just to resolve your issue. Mm-hmm. Not anymore. All I do is ask you in your webcam, hold it up, take a picture of it. Go to the website, take a picture of it. Immediately, it can recognize that it's broken. It will then basically tell you, throw it away or return it, whatever it may be. The bot will automatically order a new one and send it to you. Zero humans involved in that whole process because I trained it to recognize a broken item. So customer service people, customer support people, customer success people, you're going to see the attrition of those quite heavily.
So
I know, I feel like I'm getting just bad news, but I think it's better to prepare people for what's coming.
Absolutely.
Than not know and then get slapped in the head like by surprise.
So would the first area be to tool up and to look for other opportunities, making other opportunities, or tool up to better serve customers? How?
Yeah. It's a tough question. Let me try to parse this one.
Okay.
If you're an entrepreneur, you better come up with multiple streams of income.
Sure.
Right? But again, it depends on the product. So for example, you sell cake mixes, right? Okay. An AI can't do the cake mix, can't do the branding. You know what I mean? You can establish a brand. But I think establishing brands are going to get harder and harder, right? Especially, when you think about we've become more global, everything seems to be a commodity lately. My point is that if you don't have multiple streams of income, you're exposing yourself to, big downside here.
Absolutely.
So one of the things we should do, and I hope happens, is that I don't want to get on a rant, but our education system is so far behind of what we need to be doing today to train people correctly. Like blue collar jobs, safe. Why? AI can't repair your roof.
Yeah.
Do the plumbing, electricians, those guys safe. You're going to see a move towards apprenticeships. UPS just announced that they're offering drivers up to $170,000 a year to drive a truck. Okay, right? Because Elon has not figured out the driverless truck thing yet, right? But what happens is those jobs that robots can't do, definitely humans can do. But look at the value of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
If you're a plumber or electrician, you're good and you'll probably be able to raise your price. But I think everything that's done in front of a computer or anything that just uses technology as what you have to hang your hat on, that's the jeopardy there. That's the risk you're going to run. And you can argue that, like even me as a speaker, right? I can see myself being AI'd out eventually, right? Because what will happen is they can train, we've seen this already. You can train a hologram, right? I can program the hologram to answer. I can take all the Victor Antonio content. Somebody can do this today. Take all the Victor Antonio content, take all the videos, all the audios on YouTube, like 1,600, right? Convert them all to text, and then train a machine. And then have a Victor Antonio bot just answer questions the way Victor Antonio would answer it. Now, that would take some business away from me. I still like to believe some people still want to hear me speak. But I have at least 4, streams of income, so I think I'm insulated. But that's all from the future. But it's coming our way. So a lot of people will be impacted. I think over the next few years, I think if you've been a technophobe and you've been staying away from technology, you need to get closer to technology, or you're going to be that dinosaur that wakes up one day and you're like, I don't have a job and I don't know what to do anymore. Because a lot of this stuff, even like I said, administrative work, AI'd out.
One final question, and I'm just curious
Yeah, let's
about
end on
this.
a positive note, please.
I'm curious about this. How did you reinvent yourself during COVID? What were the shifts that you had to make as a speaker, as an author, as a coach?
That's a good
What
question.
shifts did you make? And what are you doing right now to create? What are some upcoming shifts that you're working on and that are in the future for Victor Antonio?
By the way, it's a great question because pre-pandemic, all my stuff was live. I mean, I create videos for YouTube, but it was all live, right? So when the pandemic hit, I remember it was like March 20th, 2020. I was like, oh, this is not good. Remember, they shut everything down, at least here in Atlanta. That's not good. And within about a month or two, the cancellations for all my live events started just rolling in. I think I lost about, I always say 90%, probably more accurate, it's about 80% of my business.
Okay.
Just gone. I mean, they were rolling in, cancel.
So pause right quick. So you said that you have 4 streams of income.
Right.
Did you have those 4 streams pre?
No.
So that's one of the shifts that you had to create. Wow.
That taught me a lesson very quickly. So then.
That's great.
So what, I was like, oh, snap, right? It's like, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, something's got to change, right? And so I then said, okay, I can't leave the house. What I then did is I don't know, it's like $10,000, $15,000 worth of, I took one room and made it just a massive studio, electronic boards. I was buying stuff. I didn't know what I was buying. I didn't know how to use the cameras. I was buying cameras. I got all kind of equipment. And then I started doing something called Sales After Dark. You can still find it online. Sales After Dark is I would go on live 3 times every evening and just do sales training for free, 3 nights a week. And so I said to myself, I'm going to do 100 episodes just to do something. People were saying, why are you doing it? I go, I don't know. I got to do something. I don't know what I'm doing. By the way, on the side, I'd already had some videos from my academy. I started building faster. And so now I started offering my academy. So that was the first, okay, that's a new, stream of income. Okay. I then began to license that to companies who wanted to put that content on their platform or on their server. So that became the second one. Now I'm still doing these lives, and I don't know, I was episode 40, 50. Most people would have given up. I kept going. Then people called me, basically said, hey, can you do a virtual training for us? Because they saw I would use the board and everything and cool training. So now I got the virtual stuff back. Okay, 3 streams of income now. Okay, now we're more solid. And then people would book me for not only the virtuals, but maybe do some workshops and coaching. Okay, we got that stream going also. And so I ended the year by not only regaining everything I lost, but I grew by 17.6%, I think was the actual number. And so we've been growing ever since. So it was but that came out of, sometimes it's just like necessity, man. What is that? Innovation is mother of necessity, something like that. I just had to recreate myself. And it was scary for all of us, right? And I didn't know what I was doing. So sometimes I do things not really understanding what the end goal. I know what the end goal is, to try to find a way to, to monetize it. But sometimes you just have to, I always say you got to walk down to see what's around the corner, you got to walk to the corner.
Sure.
And so by doing these lives, I said, well, let me walk down, let's see if there's something here. And then, by the way, what I didn't mention is I also got like 2 other big contracts where people said, I want you to do this for us monthly.
Okay.
And those were big contracts. Because of that, they saw the content, they saw the material, they saw the presentation.
Those things may not have come had you not taken some.
Not may, would not have come.
Okay. So here's a question, because I believe that every leader is always growing. We're always advancing. What are some things that you're growing in right now and that you're projecting and that you're you're creating right now for the next version of Victor Antonio?
So I just launched, coincidentally, we didn't talk about this, so it's an interesting question. I believe because this is part of my projection machine. I'm always trying to predict what's happening. Pre-pandemic, a lot of people weren't doing videos. They weren't, right? And so that to me was an advantage because I was creating content like mad. Not at the level I am now once I had to redo the studio, but I was creating content. And so now everybody's got a podcast, everybody's got a show. I'm sure that there's a chart on videos being uploaded to YouTube, pre-pandemic like that, post-pandemic exponential, right? And so what's happening now is that there's so much noise in the market because everybody's creating content. Have you noticed this?
Absolutely.
Everybody's creating content, right? So then this idea hit me about literally 2 weeks ago, maybe 2.5 weeks ago when I was in Dallas. And that is, I'm literally in the hotel room and I'm thinking about creating more content and I'm thinking, I'm just feeding the machine. Like this AI YouTube machine that's just hungry, just wants to eat, right? And we're over there feeding it videos, podcasts, whatever. And I'm like, there's insanity here. Because I'm creating content, I'm not getting the views I used to get, I'm not getting the level of subscribers I used to get, but I'm still feeding the machine at the same level, if not at a higher level. Again, definition of insanity. Why am I still doing this? Sure. And the thought hit me, I said, wait a minute. With all this noise going on in the market, I said, maybe I'm looking at this wrong. And I came up with, I'm giving you a short version of this long, extended thought process. I said, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna see if I could shift from content creation to content curation. Here's what I mean. Because there's so much stuff out there already, right? What people want, finding the why and how people buy, what they want is, they're overwhelmed. Because I'm overwhelmed, you're overwhelmed, everybody's overwhelmed, right? So I'm like, well, what if I curate the content? So I came up with this concept, it's a longer story, but I came up with this concept called Red Sage. The red, because I like red, I like the color red, and sage is, a sage, somebody who's all-knowing. So this morning, literally, I just launched my 3rd episode. So this is like at the nascent stage of beginning. This is a 5-year plan, by the way. I want to get to the point where I'm featuring some of the best thought leaders in a 10-minute or less snippet. I'm featuring them, right? And what I am saying to my marketing directly, if you sign up to the Red Sage channel, I just have sages on here.
Wow.
The content has been curated. They've passed the Victor filter of being good enough for you to listen to. You want to be on this channel, all right? And so that's why I just launched Red Sage. And by the way, so there's several subtleties here. You'll have to check it out. I think you can find it now on Spotify because literally, this is so new. And I don't know if I'm going in the right direction, but I said I'm gonna do 100 episodes of Red Sage. It's got a little pulsing Buddha. I try to make it look as cool as possible with my son's help. And I'm launching it, and I'm hoping after 100 episodes, I get this, right today, for example, we have over 200,000 subscribers on YouTube. It's not bad, 200,000. So I am shooting for, I'm being very, I get it, Shangri-La, Pollyannish about this, but I'm shooting for 1 million.
Wow.
On this new one, because I believe that if I curate the best of the best, I will attract the market that's tired of looking for content and says, just go to the Red Sage channel.
You're going to get the best of the best.
Yeah. And then if the invisible hand, whether it's God or Adam Smith, moves in my direction, then I'll sell it. Or monetize just monetize it as best as possible. And so that's kind of the plan right now. If you ask me how I'm going to
that's great, man.
Yeah. By the way, I'm using other people's content. That's what it's better.
So one last, and I know I said that there was a last. Here's the last one. Right. Who are some of the industry leaders? Who are some of the coaches? I believe that every leader needs a leader. Every coach needs a coach. Yeah. Who are some of the voices that are directly influencing your life today, and why?
I come from, again, my lens is always sales, right? And so there's people out there who don't have a big name, but I think they're big. And Brent Adamson and Matt Dixon are two people. They wrote the Challenger Sale. Matt Dixon recently wrote a book called The Jolt Effect. I think they're like thought leaders in the world of selling. There's a guy named Tim Reister. He's with a company called Corporate Visions. Again, his presentation, his sales content, top notch. Those three guys are three people I follow that I think are just, at a level that I go, okay, you're good. I want to listen to you. So I look for people who are very good. From from a presentation standpoint, I get this question a lot. Victor, who do you like that presents? And
and that's where I was going.
Oh,
I was going to go
I'm
there.
the toughest critic. This is going to surprise you. It's going to really surprise you because my style is very, all over the place, right?
Absolutely.
Very dynamic. Simon Sinek.
Oh, yeah.
Simon Sinek is the only guy that I've seen in a long time. He reminds me of Jim Rohn. Jim Rohn used to stand behind the lectern and could hold your attention for 2 hours.
Is that where you get the find your why?
No. That came from Cialdini.
Oh, that's right.
That's Cialdini. Right. So I used to study Zig Ziglar is the one I used to study his style.
Okay.
That was his style. Then Jim Rohn had the way of vocalizing or verbalizing business concepts that just like you sit there and for 2 hours you can just listen to this guy.
Sure.
Simon Sinek did a presentation, and I watched him, and he had a flip chart. He wrote it, and by the end of the presentation, he had only used that one page, and he had like 3 horribly drawn images, right? The guy can't draw, right? 45 minutes, he's standing still, and he's just drew a couple of bad images, and it went like that. And I said, I got to watch this again. I said, what is it this guy does? What's
keeping your attention?
And it's his storytelling ability.
Okay.
And I realized, wow, this is a guy who minimizes effort, movement, can just tell stories in such a way that you're just in. And so that's a person who I admire when it comes to presentations.
Victor, thank you so much for your time and for being here and for speaking into the live audience as well as to those who are watching on television. I want to encourage you to subscribe to his YouTube channel and also go to his website, victorantonio.com. If you are a meeting planner, if you're looking for someone to really rock the stage and to really change the format of your culture and your organization, Victor is the man that you want to have speak at your next live event. So thank you again, Victor.
Thank you very
and
much.
we pray God's continual blessing to be upon you and your family.
I accept that. Thank you.